when we talk about the mental health of the self-construct, or the mental health of who I think I am, this is liable to be very confusing, simply because we can't think of who else we could be other than who we think we are. So if you come along and start talking to me about the so-called mental health of the idea that I have of myself, I'm going to be at a loss, because I'm going to be thinking, well, who else am I if I'm not who I think I am, who I've always taken myself to be, who everyone else understands me to be, who society, the state, understands me to be? What other possibility is there? This is a hard thing for us to understand, generally speaking, because we don't believe in anything that hasn't been produced by thought. So to start talking about a reality that thought isn't privy to, a reality which is primary, a reality which comes before the original reality, the reality that is there before we start thinking about it, we're at a loss because we don't know anything about that reality. No one ever mentions it, no one ever talks about it. It just seems like a really strange angle to take. There is a way that we can try and make this more real rather than somewhat elusive, rather than it seeming like an elusive philosophical idea. Because it is a real thing. It's more real than the stuff that we ordinarily understand to be real. Because the stuff we ordinarily understand to be real isn't that real at all, really. It's just our ideas, it's just our thoughts. And the whole shebang, the whole world that has been constructed by thought is nothing more than a house of cards, very, very flimsy. And yet, at the same time, it seems impregnable, it seems immense, it seems unchanging, it seems like nothing can ever change it. So it does have this appearance, the appearance of being immutable, the appearance of being rock solid, the appearance of being completely undeniable. Just like a brick dropped on your toe is completely concrete and completely undeniable, and we can't say, oh, the brick isn't real because we might have a broken toe, but whatever it is, we'll be in a lot of pain. So it's got that kind of brutal concreteness. But at the same time, as having this appearance of immutability and inevitability, in the sense that, well, what else could there ever possibly be apart from this? What else could there ever possibly be other than the world that thought makes for us? So at the same time as there is all of this, which is really the imprisoning factor of the mind-created virtual reality, the imprisoning factor being that factor which makes us incapable of questioning it or even daring to question it. It makes us, it would make us feel bad about even thinking about questioning it. That's the grip it's got on us. But at the same time, it's all very, very flimsy. And a sudden breeze coming into the window and the whole pack of cards would come down, which would be correspondingly shocking to us. It would be shocking to us to the same extent that we've fallen under the impression that it really is as solid, as reliable as it says it is, when it absolutely isn't. So that's just another way of talking about samsara. It's just another way of talking about the world of illusion. And it seems so incredibly real, and yet at the same time it's fantastically unsubstantial, as we can see in retrospect. Even if we can't see it and we can't see it at the time. So it's got that particular quality to it. So all of this is just to explain a bit more why this concept, the concept of the mental health of who we think we are, is not an easy one to get across. But there are ways we can try to make it more real, as I keep saying, as I go round and round in circles a little bit. So, for example, we could say, well, to try and put it in a different context, in a more familiar one, we could say, well, who I think I am is just another way of talking about the ego. So now we're talking about the mental health of the ego. That makes it kind of simpler because we know what boosts the ego and we know what takes it down a peg or two. So as far as the ego is concerned, mental health equals feeling good about itself. So it means feelings of justification, vindication, feelings of having overcome difficulties, feelings of being somehow supreme, somehow superior, somehow better than all the other egos. So it's a kind of a shininess. So health for the ego is that kind of shininess that comes. It's like a Teflon shininess. It's like a brand new Teflon sauce, but nothing sticks to it. It's super clean, and that is health. So no matter what I do, it's never really my fault. It never really undermines me, and that's the egos. That's the ego working in its healthy mode, healthy for the ego. So what is healthy for the ego is to see life in the particular distorted way that it does, and there's obviously no question that it is a distorted way, in the particular distorted way that it does, without it having a clue that its viewpoint is distorted. So in other words, the health of the ego can be taken as corresponding to the integrity of the game that we're playing. And another way of saying that is to say that the mental health of the ego is a function of how good it is at only believing what it wants to believe, a function of how good it is at deceiving itself. So, having said this, we can see that there is such a thing as the mental health of the ego, which can be taken as an analogue of genuine mental health, i.e. mental health that's actually real. And also we can see that the more mental health, this shiny quality of the ego where it can do no wrong, it's never to blame, it's completely justifiable in everything it does, that kind of leeway that the ego needs to do whatever it wants to do and get away with it, basically, is mental health that's acting against us. So it's actually an unhealthy situation. So there's an inversion going on, is what I'm trying to say. That the mental health of the ego is the opposite of mental health. It's the distorted upside down version of mental health. Now, of course, we can't see that because we're looking at things from the point of view of the ego. And so, from the point of view of the ego, which is pretty much how we necessarily relate to the world and relate to other people and relate to ourselves, we can't really, it's very, very rare that we can take this persona away, this mask off, this particular way of looking at the world. We can't ditch it very easily. And so for this reason, we have no comprehension of what a genuine form of mental health might be. From the ego point of view, that's incomprehensible to us. We only know one thing, which is winning. Mental health for the self-concept equals winning, equals successfully achieving our goals, equals having the advantage, etc., etc., etc. But even though we can't comprehend it, there is such a thing as genuine mental health, and that genuine mental health is also something that we will have to contend with. So it's very, very clear that anything I try to establish or work a way to achieve, any direction that I want to go in, is in the direction of false mental health. I'm looking after the idea that I have of myself. That's my own construct. It's the artificial situation that I'm working away at creating. But there is always the situation that I have not created, the situation which was there all along, and the situation which I am trying to cover up. Now, even though I'm putting a lot of energy and tenacity into covering it up, the actual reality of how things are, without me interfering or putting my own spin on it, will impinge on me from time to time. And because I'm relating to everything through the lens of the self-construct, this means that when mental health of the genuine nature impinges on me, it impinges on me in the form of painful emotions. So this is the subtler way of looking at things. Normally we think that when mental health comes along, it's all lovely and we're empowered by it and everything's great and we're like someone in the ads. We look like we're having a great time. Our teeth are white and shiny and our hair is glossy and we're wearing nice clothes and other stuff like that. We're leading meaningful lives. It's all good. So this concept of a meaningful life is basically the idea that we have of ourselves wants to have a meaningful life, and what having a meaningful life means for the idea that we have of ourselves is a life that validates the idea that we have for ourselves. So it's not really life, it's a validating mechanism has to be there. Society is a validating machine for who we think we are. It can also be very devalidating. It can say that we're good, it can say that we're bad, it can say that we're a pillar of society or a scummy criminal. It doesn't make any difference, because whether the validation machine says we're the one or the other, a hero or a villain, it's still creating the false idea of ourselves, because if I see myself as the worst person in the world, that's still a construct. If I see myself as a hero, that's also a construct. I'm validated either way, either in a negative or positive way. It doesn't make any difference, and neither are true, because when the ego is good, gets a prize, that's an illusion, getting a prize, getting an illusory prize. And when the ego is bad and gets punished, gets a kick up the arse, that's an illusory kick up the arse, or illusory demerit or stamp, persona non grata. So it's illusory both ways. So there's no real difference between being a winner and being a loser, being a hero and being a villain. It's all the same. They're just the two sides of the same illusion. But when reality itself comes into play, as I was saying, the first onset of mental health comes as pain, because the mental health of the ego is the opposite of genuine mental health, i.e. it's actually a sickness we can't see as such. And so when we are sick with this sickness that we can't see as much and mental health comes along, we gain awareness of our actual situation, not all at once, not a complete awareness, probably, but little bits of it here and there, hints, little aspects get highlighted every now and again. And that is very painful. It's not just difficult for me to process. I can't process it because if I do process it, I'll put all the things together that I'm learning. It'll spell one thing and one thing only, which is the falsification of my illusory idea of myself. Not to say that it's bad, not to say that it's good, not to pat it on the head or give it a kick up the arse, but it just never existed in the first place. So obviously we're not going to pat it on the head or kick it up the arse. So that's what falsification means. Falsification is different from devalidation. Devalidation is still validation because we're still saying it here. It is here, it is real, it is this. We're saying it is here, it is real, it is this, but it's bad. And that's no different from saying it is here, it is real, it is there, it is actually existing, and it's good. So validation, devalidation, the same thing. Falsification is when the rug is pulled out from under us and that our whole way of understanding ourselves and the world is challenged in a very major way. And this often, the first signs would tend to be a perception of our own, the futility of our own lives. Nothing more futile than living a life that is based on an idea of ourselves that isn't real. What could be more futile than that? So a perception of futility, and also the sense that this whole endeavour of mine is a bunch of fakery. So I'll start to feel, I'll not only feel futile, I'll feel fake. And lots of shades of this, but whatever it is I'm feeling, it's not what I want to feel. And therefore I say this is mental ill health. But it's not, it's only mental ill health from the upside down viewpoint of the ego or self-concept. Actually, it is health. So what we can say about this genuine type of health is that it's involuntary. It's involuntary because there's no way I'd willingly move in that direction because it challenges or falsifies everything about me. There's absolutely no way that the self-concept is ever going to move willingly towards genuine health. Absolutely not. It'll move to illusory health for sure, i.e. a new improved illusion, a new improved fantasy, a new improved self-deception, but it won't move of its own free will towards the truth. It can't do. It can't do because the only way it exists at all is through lying to itself or not seeing the truth. So if its only existence can come about when there's no truth, then obviously there is no mechanism there is no incentive there is no process there by which that false idea of ourselves could move towards the truth even if it wanted to. Not that it would want to, but it might want to think that it's moving to the truth when it's not. But there's no, because the truth is completely unknown, and because the truth would actually falsify the entire existence of the self that's looking for the truth, it's not something that's going to happen. But mental health or increasing awareness or wholeness does happen. It just happens against our will, and we fight against it. And we're taken to wherever it is we're going to be taken to, kicking and screaming. Fight against it with everything we got. So we fight when we're identified with the idea of ourselves. We fight against our own mental health with absolutely everything we've got. And part of this fight against our own mental health is this incredible fantasy that we keep airing, which is the fantasy of how actually we do want mental health, and these are all the things that we're doing. These are all the things that we're doing to get mental health. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm doing yoga. I'm doing whatever the hell it is. So these are all the fantasy activities of the self-concept, which it imagines is a genuine aspirational movement towards a healthy way of life. So it totally believes that. So that's part of the lie, because if I do totally believe I'm working towards my own health, that makes it harder for me to say that actually the last thing in the world I want is any form of genuine mental health, because I've got this great cover going that I'm doing the healthy things. So just because you might meet me and I'm into all these therapies and yogas and meditation and all the stuff, and I'm really keen about it, that does not necessarily mean that I'm genuinely or sincerely trying to move towards the truth or move towards mental health. It just means that I'm putting on a huge effort, a huge show, a big show to counteract my deeper down intentions, to cover them up, which is that I absolutely don't want anything to do with it. So that's a level of nuance we don't usually see. We don't usually see that almost entirely the whole field of alternative health, all this stuff that we're always going on about, healing, etc., which sounds so nice. And it does sound nice, and it does feel empowering, and it is like getting into a nice bath and with essential oils and having candles, and it does feel nice, and that's fine, that's nice, but it's not the movement to mental health. It's not the movement towards mental health, because if it was, it wouldn't be nice. It wouldn't be pleasant. It wouldn't be something that we would be enjoying and validating ourselves for. It would be completely against our will, and we wouldn't like it at all. And that's how we'd know that it actually is mental health.